opposite end and ordered an old-fashioned, which I drank on occasion. Watching from afar, I felt suddenly cut off from the man I had spent the past 11 years with. It felt so strange to be watching everyone interact, greet one another, smile and laugh, and it would go on the exact same way whether I was there or not. I was already on my second drink, and I was interrupted by throat clearing beside me. It's a terrible thing to drink alone. John Slade was there, motioning for the bartender to bring us both another. As I studied him, I realized that now I knew there was a snake underneath his sleek, handsome exterior. He had lost his luster. Ask you a question? Sure, I acquiesced, accepting the third glass set down in front of me by the very cute young bartender. I'll get that, John offered. No, I said sharply, flicking my gaze to the big brown eyes of the man making my drinks. It stays on my tab. Of course, he consented, smiling wolfishly. Whatever you want, Mr. Vanass. I grunted before lifting the tumbler to my lips. I can't buy you a drink? John questioned me as the bartender left us. No, you can't. Only friends buy me drinks. And we're not going to be friends, is that it? I glanced over at him. No, we're not. He shrugged. Fair enough. May I ask that question now? Sure. Some people in this town seem to think that you and your boss are more than employer and employee. I shook my head. They're wrong. So your relationship is purely professional. Of course, I assured him. So if, for instance, I was to ask him over to my place, that's not a problem for you? Only in so much as you're doing it for money and not lust, I said, and then I took a sip of my drink. And for that, I'd have to break you in half. He closed his hand on my right bicep and squeezed, or tried to. Okay, so I guess you could. Easily, I warned. He laughed softly. How did you know? Vincent Whitmore, the Ashcrofts, both senior and junior, they all have an agenda. I watch out for them. You're very good. Most people don't see me coming. How could they not? I dazzle in charm, he said huskily, sliding his hand down my arm to my wrist. And everyone wants me to take them to bed. So you say. And what about you? You up for a night at my hotel, since we both know the score? I don't think you bottom, I said dryly, turning to face him. His smile was wide. And you would be right. I figured you were going after Everett. You seemed interested. He's very serious. John winced like that was horrible. Have you noticed that? School teachers, I hissed. What are you going to do? He put his hand on my shoulder. Talk to me about the publicist, Owen. I arched an eyebrow for him. What about Brendan? All he gets is quick fuck in the hallway? Saw that, did you? The start of it, I replied drolly. I figured you had the presence of mind to move it to the bathroom. I did. He winked at me. But Brendan is definitely just a trick. There's nothing there that would pique my interest more than once. Charming. But come on, the publicist looks tasty. Talk to me. No, you can't have both of them. I want one of those guys for my boss. I already told you he's welcome to the relationship-only elementary school educator, he offered jovially, patting my shoulder like we were pals. I don't do long-term. Only one-night stands. Yep. Any longer requires payment up front. I'm the same, I insisted, without the exchange of cash. Well then, John sighed, maybe I'll try bottoming just this once. No, Roman stated coolly from the other side of me. Not a chance. That spot's already taken. Is it? John baited him. Would you like to test drive my... gleefully, his surprise and delight in his voice. I love that. He was the oddest man, both vile and somewhat charming at the same time. "John," Roman began kindly, "I think Owen would love you to save him from the ladies' auxiliary, who want him to help with the spring cotillion." John stared at Roman, visibly stunned, but the richest man in town didn't see him. Roman's gaze was locked on my face. "I'm supposed to be seducing you, Mr. Howell," John said with a seductive chuckle. "Sorry," he sighed, "but I only offer up my ass to this man." I choked, and John hooted out a laugh before he patted Roman's shoulder and left us. "Roman, you can't say things like that." I coughed some more. "It's not you." "It is so me," he promised, as he lifted my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles. "People will see," I whispered. "I suspect he's livid right now." "Livid in heaven?" "Yes, even angels get angry. Read your Bible." I exhaled deeply. "You're supposed to let me go." "Why ever would I do that?" "Because it's for the best," I implored. "I'm really no good for you." "You're deluded, but I'll let it slide since you're my mate." "Oh, for the love of God," I groaned, trying to shake his hand loose. "You're not my mate." "Who's not your mate?" Raisa demanded gently as she slid in beside Roman and took his hand in a tight, hard clench. I was surprised. "What? How did you know he likes that?" "Oh, please," she made a face. "Quaid, he's the mate of a jackal, even more, the mate of an alpha. If he couldn't be mauled and struck and handled roughly, he'd never have lasted. We're animals, and that nature is as dominant as the human part. We do everything, bruising without even meaning to. It's how we are." And it was. But we were fortunate we were alone at one end of a very long bar, and she was speaking in a conspiratorial whisper and no louder. There would have been stares and questions otherwise. Again, I asked, "Who's not your mate?" Roman was waiting to hear my answer as well. I shook my head. "Never mind." "I want to go home," Roman announced suddenly. "Raisa, please corral Josephine from her slew of admirers so we can depart." "Absolutely," she agreed, squeezing his hand for a second time before putting hers on my face. She had tears shimmering in her eyes. "Thank you for welcoming me back into your life. I'm so happy to be here." "Go get your kid," I groused at her, which made her sniffle softly, smile, and wipe away a stray teardrop before she left us. "I can't wait to get home," Roman remarked. At toe, Roman's phone rang, and after a quick conversation, he hung up and twisted around in his seat so he could see Raisa. That was Akiko, and she said the transfer is underway. Since my company is footing the bill for the move, she went ahead and chartered the medical transport this evening, he informed my sister. "Tomorrow you can drive into Rockport and visit your husband. They'll alert you in the morning as soon as he arrives." She grabbed his wrist and forearm he'd rested on the back of his seat and held on tight as she leaned close. "Thank you, Roman," she rasped. "I don't know what to say so you understand what this means." "I already know," he soothed her. "I had to make a choice. Leave my mate to protect my child or remain at his side and risk Josephine's safety," she inhaled sharply, swallowing the tears I could hear clogging her voice. I know what he would have said. He would have made the same choice I did if the roles were reversed, but still, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Walking out of that hospital room nearly killed me. "I have no doubt." "But," she whimpered, her voice breaking, "now my girl is safe, and so is my mate, thanks to what you've already done and what my brother is about to do." He bent and kissed the back of her hands. "My life is yours, Roman Howell. Whatever you want or need, you tell me." His smile was wicked, and I could see that even out of the corner of my eye. "All I want is your brother." "Done," she promised. They were ridiculous. "You both need to... What the fuck is this?" "Oh my God!" Josephine gasped, from behind me. A big black SUV sat parked in front of the gate that led up to lounge, and two men stood in front of it. "Jesus," Reza hissed out. "I'm so sorry, Quaid. They must have followed me out here." "Everyone stay in the car," I ordered as I stopped the BMW and faced Roman. Got out. He was smaller than I had expected, only an inch taller than Roman, and leaner. His long blonde hair fell thick and curly to the middle of his back, and a queue held it out of his eyes. I watched as he lifted his face to the wind to catch my scent. Striding forward, I pulled off the jacket and let it fall on the paved road before starting on the buttons of my dress shirt. Another man got out of the back, and he was armed with a machine gun. "Guns," I called, "will still end the same." He had no idea what he was talking about. "You don't have an alpha." "We most certainly do," he argued. "So if you hand over our pack members, we'll leave peacefully." But they had broken the peace with their arrival at my home. "You're not a true alpha," he mistakenly informed me. I nodded before I took a breath and unbuckled my belt, unzipped, and yanked until I was naked in front of them. Only then did they start disrobing. They all yelled when I charged forward, leaped at the last minute, and landed on top of the SUV, fully shifted, crushing the top of it with my weight. Metal crumpled, glass shattered, and everyone froze. I expected them to shift and come at me all at once, but instead they only stood and stared, eyes wide, mouths open, their shock evident. As close as I was to them now, faces began to take shape, and I started to remember who I killed. I should have left before he did. I leaped down and whirled on the leader, driving him back hard into the side of the ruined Chevy Suburban with my paws on its chest. On my hind legs, stretched out, I was looking down at him, the man's face at the end of my muzzle. "Fuck!" He heaved out a breath slowly, carefully, then lifted trembling hands to my head and sank his fingers into my hair. "Wait! Another of the men began moving forward, and I felt a hand in the thick hair behind my head. I can't even think." The blonde's name slid into place in my brain. Tucker Flynn. "Quaid," he ground out my name. "Please, let me talk to you." Shifting where I stood, my paws became hands, and I gripped his shoulders tight as I stared into his eyes and remembered more about him. My friend Tucker. He shivered hard, and I realized he was having a hard time standing. I let go of him, took a step back, and he sank down to one knee. The four others were quick to follow his example, and then I had 5 men showing respect in front of the gate of Lounge in the bone-chilling December wind. "Tuck," I husked out. When he gazed up at me, his smile was blinding. Right then, I knew I was in no danger. Pivoting to face the car, I saw that Roman had the passenger door ajar, and he was standing there, beside it, helped me open, against my express order. "Roman, do you think you could put on some clothes now?" he yelled over to me. "I would love that." Under the interior lights inside the car, Raisa was crying and laughing at the same time, her hand over her daughter's eyes because I was, in fact, naked. "Now," Roman called out again. I threw up my hands and started walking back toward my pants. Tucker and the 4 men who had made the trip out from Phoenix with him were sitting in the hall, obviously in awe of the chateau, when I came down the grand staircase. Roman and Raisa had kept them company while I changed and packed a bag. Josephine had gone up to bed at her mother's request. Tucker and the others had made it clear